Why does Nancy Berger need to meet Julia Duthie? Only on Just Press Record can you get a conversation like this. We talk time and time and time and time. I mean, oh my God, do we talk about time on this one? We talked first times on stage, one of them at 14, the other one at 40. We talk coming out at 50 and how that relates to a bipolar diagnosis at the age of 40 and all the life that transpires in between. This is a remarkably moving conversation. You're going to love this. Jack Forehand, let's roll some clips.
I was in my first band when I turned 40 because I was so afraid of regretting, of not trying and having that regret that I just barreled through. And I've been in bands ever since and I still perform.
I had the opposite stage fright, Matt. I had stage excitement. If anything, I had to calm it a bit. But literally, I remember my first gig, I think I was about 15. I just came out like a jack in the box.
It was more of an exercise in convincing myself that I was comfortable. And I guess I pulled it off because nobody really knew.
If I've only got a handful of summers left, I want to do them properly. I want to really live honestly and wholeheartedly.
I always use this metaphor. We're all like Dorothy. You got the slippers? We don't know that if we tap them together, we're going to get to Kansas. We don't know anything, but it's all right here.
I'm myself everywhere, and therefore I belong everywhere. I don't ever worry about it. It doesn't matter what room I'm in, who I'm with, what situation. I'm comfortable.
Consistency is just the lack of the hard work of faking it. It's giving yourself a pass, actually.
And I'm looking down at him, and I saw this very, I don't know, lifeless body. And it felt like yesterday this was the most animated person I knew, this vital person, this person with great charisma and energy.
Fear was a motivator, I think, for me. Is this going to be it? I've got another 30 years, 40 years. Let's give it a go. Otherwise, I have only myself to blame. So I got a little pissed about it, a little bit like, no. And that's where I think change started to happen.
You're watching Just Press Record right here on Cultish Creative YouTube. And hey, I'm your host, Matt Ziegler, and this is the show where I take two people who've never met before to prove just how fun growing your network in public can be. You just got to have a little fun with it. You know, you got to experiment. Make sure to subscribe, like, leave a comment below. Don't forget the OG written version at cultishcreative.com, where I've got introductions to both of these guests coming to you so you can connect with them too. Let's get into it. This first guest. Now, she's got a reputation for helping people find their fears, a whole business about it, really, if you look at it. But let's be honest, what is finding fear but finding a little broken piece of joy in the bottom of your little happy meal? And to her, she's that Big Mac in the Happy Meal box of fear as the novelty, high-functioning person. And what's more, she's a writer, a serious writer, and you have to be a leader of ideas, a master communicator. Plus, if fears and happy meals can go together, then telling good stories and having the occasional Whopper mixed in, it feels damn well essential, which sandwich puns are just how this is going to go today. So, excuse me, I've got one more. This guest is also known for consulting in high stakes environments. And for that, it's a very good reason that we can say to our younger, maybe sub 30-year-old viewers out there, I can think of no higher stakes environment than the Krusty Krab, located in Bikini Bottom, a SpongeBob universe reference. I'm going there. Where this guest, she wouldn't be a Big Mac, a Whopper, or even a Krabby Patty. She's all of them combined, making her the Sandy Cheeks level of a handy genius that you want to have around your organization. I'm going to put those sandwich and cartoon puns aside. Nancy Berger, welcome to Just Press Record. How are you today?
I am better now. And I'm going to be in the Krusty Krab. I mean, my kids will love that one.
Okay, good. And I mean, Sandy Cheeks is a pretty iconic character. I've got to say, she's pretty awesome. Now, before I introduce the next guest, favorite burger or a sandwich? I apologize. You've probably been tortured about this for your whole life.
Yeah, I have.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to pass.
Okay. As a constellation prize, thanks to, shout out to Amanda and Aaron in my kindergarten class who told me Matt Ziegler rhymes with Jello Jiggler, and I'm pretty sure I heard that all the way through
all right,
high school and beyond. So that's all right. I'm all out of burgers. I got to introduce you to this next guest. I was gonna do Julia's because shout out to prior guest Julia Carry On, but I can't do those Julia Childs, Julia Louis Dreyfus, or Julia Gulia reference twice I'm above that. I'm a better person. I can come up with new things. I'm going deeper into Julia's for this next guest. I'm getting notes of Julia Gillard, who, like this guest, is a first woman at so many levels. If you don't know Julia Gillard, she is or was famous for being the 27th Prime Minister of Australia, serving 2010 to 2013, as Wikipedia tells me, and the first woman to hold that position. So this Julia knows a thing or two about female firsts. And as if this is even a follow-up, I'm going to go with the great actress, Julia Stiles, and not Born Identity Stiles. I'm going full 10 Things I Hate About You, Julia Stiles, a classic film. I'm sure you both know it well, where Julia Stiles and this guest, they have a lot in common in their character, because the internet tells me that Julia Stiles' role is fiercely independent, outspoken, a nonconformist, known for intelligence, sharp wit, and feminist ideals with a refusal to conform to high school social norms. Plus, by the end of a movie, the character remains true to her core values as intelligent, self-aware, and independent, while still true to her aging. She's grown to embrace vulnerability, trust, and connection with others. This guest, Julia, she's all about connection with others, non sequitur of a segment, but if you follow her online, you know about her love for learning about connections from her smash YouTube show, People Are Everything, where she gets people like me to spill their guts on their connections that made them who they are today. No topic or project would be closer to my heart than that. Enough of the yammering. Pass the Duthie to the left-hand side. It's Julia Duthie. Welcome to the show, Julia.
That was brilliant. Thank you. I love that.
Have you
Especially
ever
the last bit.
Yeah, have you ever gotten a pass the Duthie joke?
No, not once.
All
I
right,
love it.
I hope it continues from there. Now, we have to confirm this first. Nancy Berger, have you ever met Julia Duthie before?
Never once.
Julia Duthie, on the record, have you ever met Nancy Berger before?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, well, we're going to see if you can guess by the end of this episode why I thought you two had to meet. But in the meantime, I want to start here. And this is a story that, Julia, you've told me before. And I know it's just a chapter in the journey here, but can you tell us about the Academy of Contemporary Music project and what that experience was? Because I just think this is so cool.
All right. My first love was music. Still is, I guess. I was in my first band when I was 14. And prior to that, I was that keen kid on a Sunday recording the top 40. The UK has a top 40. You have a Billboard 100. You always have to have everything bigger. Anyway, we only had 40.
You don't have Texas. Get over it.
Yeah. So we had the top 40, and I was just mad about music, and was in my first band when I was 14. Had a pretty decent career of it. Finished, hung up my music boots when I was about 24, something like that, and got more into sort of businessy things. And then I had various career things, and I had my kids. And then when I had my kids, I thought, do I want to do a corporate job? And I had a corporate job at the time, and took the decision to go back to my first love, A, because it was local to me, and B, I thought if I had to have time away from my kids, I want to do something really wholesome and something I really was passionate about. So I actually joined initially with no intention to do anything dramatic. I was just want to do a couple of days a week and just stay busy. But then, I don't know, twists and turns and just I suppose I had a lot of experience. I ended up being the CEO of the Academy of Contemporary Music. Famously, Ed Sheeran was one of our students during my time. Mumford & Sons, members of Mumford & Sons. Newton Faulkner, who you might know. There's a whole kind of raft of fabulous artists. And the Academy of Contemporary Music is essentially a music industry school. It's guitar, bass, drums, vocals, keys, music business, etc. So if you want to go into the music business and be a rock star, you can study at degree level, which was pretty radical at the time, to go into that industry. So that's the Academy of Contemporary Music. Is that all right?
That's a pretty cool thing. Nancy, have you ever even heard of something like this?
Okay, I'm just gobsmacked because I know I'd never heard of that, but my first love is music also, Julia.
There you go.
You may have cracked the code very early here. Yeah, I was in the Lockets, maybe when I was about 10 years old, but then I shelved it for a long time. But I've never heard of that sort of configuration where musicians can learn the industry, the business. That's so cool.
When you were in high school or you were starting out on your own journey with this stuff, Nancy, did you think about having an honest go out of it? Did you think you were going to be?
Oh my God, no. No, 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 no. That was probably when the fear finding project was like, burgeoning, and I didn't even know it. No, no. I was so afraid and so not confident and so much stage fright and so many things. So I was in my first band when I turned 40.
Cool.
Because I was so afraid of regretting of not trying and having that regret, that I just barreled through, and I've been in bands ever since, and I still perform. So it is just an amazing connection, Julia.
Oh, well done, Matt.
Julia, did you ever have stage fright? Was this ever a thing that you experienced?
I had the opposite, stage fright, Matt. I had stage excitement. If anything, I had to kind of calm it a bit. No, literally, I remember my first proper gig. I think I was about 15. And I don't know, I just came out like a jack in the box, I think. I was just like so excitable. And I don't know, yeah. If I look back now, I would say turn it down, Julia.
What do you think? Do you actually distinctly remember your first gig?
Yeah, it was at the Wellington Arms, which is a pub in a place called Walpolston near Guildford, Surrey. I mean, come on, I know all the detail of this thing. And it was my first band. The first band was called the Innocent Bystanders. What a name. I loved it. Love that band. And it was me and a group of lads, and I was the sort of female front singer. And I just bounced around the stage for a bit and just loved every minute of it. And no stage fright. I don't know what that says about me, but no, none.
I think
Sorry.
it's amazing.
Nancy, you at 40, what was your first gig at 40? Where was it?
Maggie McFly's in Granbury, Connecticut. And
explain Maggie McFly's to Julia, because I actually think your first gigs were probably in semi-similar places for the non-Maggie McFly's visitors.
This is the first official, like not an open mic.
Right.
But it was a bar.
It counts.
It was a pub, and at that time you could smoke in bars still. So I was standing there, the front woman, the lead, looking out at the puffs of smoke, breathing it all in, just barreling through like I had done this 35,000 times before, but it was the first time. So it was more of an exercise in convincing myself that I was comfortable. And I guess I pulled it off because nobody really knew. And now when I talk to people from those early bands, and that band was called Gravel Road, they're like, yeah, you acted like you were, all about it. So I guess I was maybe acting, pulling a face, as they say.
Pulling a face.
Fit right, okay.
Julia, what do you think this thing is about convincing yourself? Like, you came out the box convinced, came out the Jack in Box in your very, very British pub to a face of beer smoke and probably pies. You didn't have to convince yourself. You were already convinced. What do you think that says?
I don't know. I've got this thing about just trusting that whatever, like, I don't know. I just used to get behind a mic and trust that whatever was going to come out would be all right. And it usually was. And I am still like that, really. And I don't think it's a particularly healthy way to be. I think it's, probably I should prepare more for things, like actually learn the lyrics. That would have been a novelty. Didn't really do that. I went on the principle that people liked or responded more to how I was rather than the detail of, what is it? Lucille, you don't need your second meal. I probably said something like that. There's not the real lyric. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? I just said it. And it was like, if I was if I was confident and I was a bit chatty with the audience, it was how I made them feel that seemed to be more important. And I've kind of carried that forward. I tend to sort of back myself and trust that my small brain will catch up with my mouth once I start speaking or doing something. So no, I don't know. It's not. I'm not saying I can't take credit for anything. I'm not saying it's particularly good. It just seems to be how I am. I just trust. I back myself, Matt. Come what may.
Back yourself. Come on, May. Nancy, what do you think about that? Because I feel like maybe, did you learn that skill in other places before you could get on a stage and do it?
So no, no, I think what actually happened was there was a convergence of all of the work that I did over the years to get to that place where I was so worried of regret that I really started to figure myself out. So that's a convoluted answer. The real thing is this. I don't, as Julia said, I agree. I don't think it's a right or a wrong thing. I think it is, we are how we are, but it's our responsibility to figure out why we are how we are if we're getting in our own way. I was getting in my own way personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally, every which way for a lot of years, which is what brought me to the work I do today to help people figure out what's holding them back. It's always ourselves. It's always our thought patterns. And it always starts with our early life and our experiences and how we've been socialized and imprinted. So for me, it was figuring out what that meant. Why was I so scared? Like, I can sing. It's not an issue of mechanics or ability or skill. It was all the internal dialogue. So I set about to figure that out. And once I started cracking that code, everything else became a lot more comfortable and I could trust a lot more. Like Julia said, I think that was something that had to come with a lot of internal work for me. So that's a long answer, but that's the truth.
I'm taking a temporary time out just to say this. If either of you want to ask a direct question to each other, totally fine. I'll edit this part out. But just so you know, you can kick me out of my own conversation. Sometimes it's even better that way. Jump back in here. All right, Julia, you know a thing or two or seven about the stories you tell yourself. Like, step out of even the music thing for a second. Just reflect on what Nancy just told us.
Well, I was just about to say, don't be fooled. I got plenty of fears. They're just different ones. Standing up in front of an audience and a microphone was nothing. But standing up and being my true, authentic self, well, that's something I'm good at that. So I think, and actually, when I look back now, I think it was all part of it. I think actually, when you are taking on a persona, you can be anything you want, and there's definitely a piece of me that was masking the hell out of it, and keeping people at arm's length. Because if you come across as kind of confident and I don't know, I probably would have been very bright and shiny. You don't let people close to you, do you? You're like, keep over there. I'm someone you get to watch. You don't get to know me. So I think there was definitely a defense, because I know what you're trying to get at, Matt. Don't worry. You don't have to dig very deeply. Nancy, I came out at 50. 50 years it took me to be authentically me. And I hate that phrase, by the way. I've said that before, coming out. It always makes me feel like I've stepped out of a cupboard. No, it's like it took a long time. And I think probably because the bright and shiny I just adopted it too much. And I didn't want anybody to think differently of me or think less of me or not love me or like me or be awkward around me in any way. And also I didn't want to lose connection with the people I loved and including my children and my ex-husband. I didn't want to lose that. So, you can keep people far away if you just present this super confident, capable person that's bright and shiny all the time. So I did that successfully for 50 years.
That's so fact. So can I ask a question? Like, I was talking about, the fear of regret. I'm curious, what was it, if you could sort of condense it to a feeling or a thought, what gave you that push to do it, to we won't use the phrase you don't like, but
be myself.
Be yourself.
Well, it started with my dad dying. I had a very complicated relationship with my dad. And he was gay, and he just was never able to say anything about it or live it. He was born in 1929. So he died when he was 90, having never had a public relationship. And yet, as a family, we always knew. And I lost my mum when I was very small. So, and he never found love. He did his whole adult life pretty much without a partner. And when he died, I just remember sort of, I was with him, not shortly after, not when he actually passed. And I'm looking down at him and I saw this very, very sort of, I don't know, lifeless body. I mean, but it's not when we've all seen lifeless bodies on the telly, but it's when it's somebody you've grown up with and you know it very intimately and you see their hands not moving and their whole body is just still. And it felt like yesterday this was the most animated person I knew, this vital person, this person with great charisma and energy. And it felt like yesterday he was my age. And here he was completely prone never to experience life again. And I remember just looking at him and going, well, two things. Wow. Death really is very final, isn't it? He's never going to have anything happen to him again in this earth. And secondly, I said out loud, I said, Dad, you're the only person I could have ever spoken to about this. And you're gone. And I never had the courage to speak to you about it. And that sent me into a bit of a spiral. And that spiral led me to a therapist, which I'd never, ever done before. I've written a book about various aspects of my life. And I remember going into the therapist, literally like I was going to go in for a fight. And it was just so stupid because I booked her. She didn't make me. But I was like, I was like, right, I'm not going to talk about this, or this, and, forget it. Let's just forget it at the end.
These are my rules.
These are my rules, and you're not going to get me to talk about anything, and I don't know why I'm even here. So, which she took as massive encouragement. And then that started a whole raft of things. So to answer your question, that was the trigger point. And I decided from then on I was not going to live inauthentically. If I've only got a handful of summers left, I want to do them properly. I want to really live honestly and wholeheartedly. So that's how it all began.
Bravo. That's a good story.
Nancy, you know a thing or two about fear. I'm just curious. Like, we're not here to psychoanalyze you, Julia. Don't worry. And
I'm ready.
And I'm in the club. I thought therapy was a fight. I'm on the record with having told my therapist when she's like, "Who are your friends? Who do you talk to?" I was like, "You. I pay you for this." What is unclear about this transaction? Nancy, the fear thing, because the fear inside of Julia's story, like, how do you understand that? You have a unique way of looking at this stuff.
I understand it on a cellular level at my core. It's a different, the story has different characters and a different plot. I have that story too. I think many, many people have a story of fear. For me, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 40. And I struggled with an eating disorder since I was 15. And I had these young children and I was in a marriage I wasn't really happy with. I was riddled with fear, so afraid that if anybody knew really everything about me, I would just be unlovable and just cast aside. The similar stuff, right, Julia? Similar. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was, okay, this is who I am. Whatever meaning people attach to the different struggles that I have in my life, that's their business. It's up to me to, figure out if I'm going to hide or if I'm going to, lean in and kind of figure this stuff out. And therapy, I've been in therapy for 35 years, so I'm no stranger. Medication for 17, psychotropic medication for 17 years. Once I started figuring out my own wiring and why I was having these thought patterns, where it all came from, what were my early experiences that kind of fueled this whole story I was writing? Was it even true, half of it? And it was a long journey of unpacking this kind of narrative. And at the end of the story, it's still going on. At one point in the story where I started doing the work I do now to help other people feel better in their skin, because there's just rampant suffering. Like, a lot of people are suffering. C-suite to, my friend down the street. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. The fact that I do it in a corporate setting doesn't mean anything other than that those are the folks that happen to need it right now. Everyone's suffering. I figured that if I could figure out how to end some of my suffering, I was going to help somebody else do it, because, man, it is not an easy fix. It takes sort of consistent practice. So, here I am. Decades later, I've weaned off the medication. That took a minute. I have figured out how to notice my triggers based on my own early life, which I call my hard drive. Everybody has a hard drive, stuff is on there. I kind of unpacked it with the help of a therapist. It took a lot of years, but I resolved so many of the triggers because I could reframe the thinking around them. And now that's what I talk about, because I can't think of anything more valuable or satisfying than to help people figure out what gets in their own way. It's like, I always use this metaphor. We're all like Dorothy. You got the slippers? We don't know that if we tap them together, we're going to get to Kansas. We don't know anything, but it's all right here. So I get really jazzed talking to people about the power they have to change everything with their own, with the fuel they already have. So fear was a motivator, I think, for me. It's like, is this going to be it? Like, you were looking down at your dad, this waxy figure that was such a big part of your life. And I watched my dad die. I get it. It's like, what? Wow. Okay. Is that it? I've got another 30 years, 40 years. Let's give it a go. Like, otherwise I have only myself to blame. So I got a little pissed about it, a little bit like, no. And that's where I think change started to happen.
Julia, it's time for you to make a guess about Nancy. If you were to guess Nancy's CV, what Nancy does today, take a shot in the dark stab. Let's see how close we can get. What do you think Nancy's up to these days? What does she do with her life?
I don't know. My instinct is you're probably coaching or mentoring senior people, like people who have a lot of pressure and stress and don't know how to handle it and need to look inwardly to figure it out. But yeah, like senior coachy, leadery people. Is that?
I like the adverbs on there. Nancy, before you answer, take a guess. What do you think Julia's CV is? If you were going to blind shot, wrong answer is welcome.
I think she's a widely sought after booking agent for the biggest names in music who are also having trouble being their authentic self.
Oh, I wish.
That sounds pretty great.
I want that job.
Conquer that next. Conquer that next for us. All right, Nancy, you first. How would you explain what you do today to Julia so she can know a little bit more about what you do in the world?
Julia was very close, actually. I am an executive coach. I help companies, teams, leaders understand their dynamics, communication, culture, whatever, and improve them if needed. I'm also a keynote speaker, and I speak on thought transformation. So that you were very
damn close. Well played. And Julia, why don't you tell Nancy about your wonderful booking agency?
I'm just going to quickly make something up and pretend I've got, I don't know.
No. Cancel the performance app.
All
right, there we go.
What do you say?
I said, you could cancel the performance aspect, or you want to just appease the audience here. You're still going to appease us. Tell Nancy about the wonderful career.
I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? This is going to be quite interesting because I've been a business leader for years. So I know about all of that. And for many years I identified with that. I was, I've been a CEO 3 times, and it's kind of my natural place to be. But curiously, I now work in private equity, post-investment, helping C-suite to do business improvement and things like that, which was really weird because when I first did it, I hated it. I was like, I want to be in the boat. I want to be, in fact, I want to be leading the boat. Whatever that is, captain? I want to be captain of the boat.
Yeah.
But now I realize I'm sort of a navigator and a helper, which didn't sit well with me for ages. I still like to lead, I think. I think it's probably why I do a little bit of what you do, Nancy. I do a bit of mentoring. Well, I like to look after people who are trying to sort of navigate their careers. I do my podcast because it gives me an outlet for all the knowledge and wisdom that I've hopefully collected over the years, because I don't really have a place to put that in my day job. But also I work with, really bright people. And I think that was a chip on the old shoulder that had to be satiated somehow. I think I didn't have much of an education because of my childhood. And I didn't come away with any qualifications. So, but I've led a really sort of experienced life, shall we say. And I work with very, very, very smart academic people and highly expert in their field. I mean, they're really extraordinary. And it's just a little point to prove to myself that I could operate at a pretty senior level amongst those kind of people and call them my friends and colleagues and find that connection. So it doesn't quite fit the picture. I get it. And most people go, what? You do what? Who've known me a long time, but somehow it sort of works for me. It just kind of gives me an outlet for the things that I know. But no, booking agent for big celebrities, yeah, bring it on. I can do that. I'll try anything.
Captain of the agency, here you come. All right, Nancy, what she just said about this idea of no place to put it in your day job. What's that mean to you? How do you think about that expression? And certainly you encounter this with some of the people you consult with. Like, how much of yourself do you bring to work? How do you pick?
Yeah. So I believe you bring yourself everywhere, the same self. I really don't. And maybe, I started my career on Wall Street in the 80s. I was working in foreign bank network. I was a lending officer. I was buttoned up, shoulder pads. I couldn't have been less authentic. But now, as I look back and when I work with clients, you bring yourself everywhere. And very often when I work with clients in the beginning, I roll out my whole spiel about, our early life experiences, fuel our inner dialogue, and that determines how we think and how we behave. And I get some eye rolls like, yeah, and we're just not going to go there. Like and then, after one or two meetings, I'm hearing about when they were 10 and, all the things that happened in their house. So I think that there's no work persona and home persona. People may think there are really, and they may try to do that, but I don't think it's sustainable. And I think that often the work that I do, I know that the work that I do does leak and have splash effect in people's personal relationships as well as their professional. It just is, it's the way it is, Like one client I had made a joke with me. He was like, yeah, I was at a barbecue with my buddies and we were having an argument and I was talking about something and I was, kind of remembering how you and I talked about this thing. And they were like, who'd you say you're working with? Like they were kind of teasing him because he had this different approach and he called it the Nancy way, which just made I felt so uncomfortable. But the point is, you can't really say, oh, I'm going to do this at work, but then I'm going to go to the barbecue and, because if you really are changing your thoughts or changing your wiring or kind of like approaching things differently, it's going to go everywhere. It's just like water,
Julia, how do you think about it? How do you think about how much of yourself to bring to things, or do you self-regulate this? Do you all in all the time now?
I'm all in all the time.
Hi.
And do you know what? It was always the way. I mean, the only thing I ever, the night and day from when I made my revelation, I made two revelations at the same time. One was that I came from a house that was Dickensian and uninhabitable by humans. And I'm not going to swear, but what Americans say, poop, full of dog poop and poop, generally. Okay. It was a really, really bad situation. And I used to hide that because I thought it was not particularly bright and shiny to say you grew up in a house like that. So I hid that until I put that out in my book. And I hid my sexuality. So, but if you'd met me prior, you still would have had the same Julia everywhere I went, but I was a bit muted because I didn't want to be found out. Yeah. I didn't want people to know I had no education, that I came from a house like that, a home like that, a childhood like that, and that I was burying a very big sort of part of myself. Post that, I show up absolutely everywhere the same. And I couldn't agree more, Nancy. I think I coined a phrase the other day. The idea that you leave yourself outside the office block, spend your day being someone else and reoccupy yourself on the way out is just so, A, it's exhausting. B, people just mistrust you. I mean, if you see someone being inconsistent, you just don't trust them, do you? They're not the same everywhere. and it's growing as a thought, I think, that the best leaders can occupy their whole selves and be authentic everywhere. And I think it is getting more real, accepted and realized that that's the way to be. Because if you can do it that way, you're pretty much, I love it what you said, Nancy. I feel I'm myself everywhere and therefore I belong everywhere. I don't ever worry about it. It doesn't matter what room I'm in, who I'm with, what situation. I'm comfortable.
I love that. And I actually didn't even say it. I'm myself
that
everywhere. That means I belong everywhere. I love that. Like, yeah, I might steal it though. Yes. Yeah. And you know what else? It's like, you'll relate to this maybe, Julia. I remember years ago in the beginning of my music, passion, like bands, working with bands, I would do this comparison, compare myself to this singer or that singer or whatever. And one of my guitar players that I played with said to me one day, there will always be someone that sings better than you technically. There will always be someone you sing better than technically. No one will ever sing that song just exactly the way you do it. And it stuck with me all these years later because it's true for everything. And once we convince ourselves, like, I'm here at the table, I'm in this company working with this person, I'm helping a founder or a CEO post-investment, it's like, I'm doing it my way. And that makes it okay to, it takes away so much of the noise, right? Because you're just doing you and it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, that just tells you it wasn't the right situation for you and you go on to the next thing.
Do you know a lady, do you listen to a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things? Do you know this one?
I do know it.
Okay, I don't know if there's a lady called Glennon Doyle on there. And, I remember reading her book, Untamed, I think it was called.
Yes.
And I've followed her ever since, and I've listened to every single podcast. And there's one thing she talks about where she used to get a lot of anxiety going on and performing. She does a lot of public speaking. And she said something like, I don't have time to prepare. And someone said, well, you don't need to prepare. And she's thought about it and she said, you're right. Everything that came before, everything I know, everything that I am is enough. I don't need to prepare. I just need to stand up in my full self and just talk. And I think a lot of people maybe don't trust themselves enough to know that mostly they have it all in their minds and bodies and souls. There may be some technical things you need to know. I mean, if you're going to do brain surgery, you probably ought to prepare for that. But generally speaking, in our worlds, it's about connecting with people. And Nancy, you'll know this more than anyone. It's like just sitting and being present and fully listening and fully engaging with someone, is 9/10 of the job anyway. It's you don't have to prepare very much. You just have to turn up fully.
That's true. I'm sure you find that in your work, Julia. Like, if I go in and meet with a prospect, I haven't run 3 companies like you have. I was a freelance writer for 35 years before I launched my consultancy. I just launched it because I was getting a divorce and all these women were asking me for help. That's why I started a consultancy. I had no business, but to your point, I think people just want to know if they can connect with you and if you have a chemistry that will, it's not about your CV necessarily.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important for young people to hear, not so that they don't build a CV, but so they understand that they're moving through space as a very unique thing. And they will find their way. It doesn't have to be somebody else's path. It doesn't have to be like anything else. I think it's important for them to hear because I think they're struggling.
Okay, rooted inside of that. And I had to cheat and I had to pick up my phone. But this is why I do this personal archiving exercise that I did. This is back apparently from May of 2021. I wrote this down. This is a Glennon Doyle quote. And I need your perspective on this. So, cheating here, but this is the way we do things. This is the quote. This kicked my butt. And I want, Nancy, you unpack this first. The quote was, "A weakness is just a strength misused."
Yes. So this is how that lands in my brain. It is how we attach meaning that determines everything. So We are meaning makers. Humans are meaning makers. It's what we do all day, every day. That's what we do because it helps us explain our world. So we attach meaning. A weakness that's a human construct. If it's something that you do poorly, or it's something that gets you in the crosshairs, or it's something that upsets you, or whatever it is, figure out why, and then turn that into an opposite action or a behavior that strengthens you. So that's convoluted. Let me make it a little simpler. What makes it a weakness? Is it because when you tried that thing, you fail? Well, then you learned a lesson. It's all about how we frame it and what meaning we attach to it. Because if I really thought all of my mistakes made me a failure, I can assure you I would not be sitting here today. And there were moments when I didn't think I'd be sitting anywhere at all with a beating heart. So, weakness, human construct. Time, human construct. Failure, success, human construct. Feel it in your body and figure out where it comes from and what you want it to be, and then make it that.
Julia, I want your take on the same Glennon Doyle quote. A weakness is just a strength misused. Where does that hit you, top of your head?
Well, I agree with everything Nancy said, and I think the only thing I can think that would maybe take it in a slightly different direction to build on that is I believe in showing my softer side and my underbelly. I'm like that little dog that wriggles and then goes on its back and goes, here's my tummy, don't hurt me. But I'd rather still show my tummy than hide it and protect myself. So I'm quite a vulnerable person. I like vulnerability. I see a strength in it. I see it that, you can't hurt me because I'm already ready to show you my whole self. And if you choose to hurt me, well, that's on you. And guess what? 2 or 3 people in the whole of my life, my adult life, and particularly my working life, have ever tried. And I don't blame them, the ones that did. They when you're a CEO, you have to do things that some people don't, take well to. But it's like, it's only happened 2 or 3 times. The rest of the time, I've totally shown my full self, my vulnerable side. And I just believe in that. I believe that there's a strength in vulnerability. And, when I think Glennon, and she has Brene all the time, doesn't she? Brene Brown's on her show all the time. And she talks about that. She talks about the weaker side of yourself, or you're perceived. To your point, Nancy, the story we tell ourselves about being vulnerable is that it's a weakness. It's a weakness, but actually, it's a huge flex to walk into a room and go, I don't really care if you like me, don't like me. Here's my tummy anyway. And, just do what you like. I'm gonna be fine anyway. So I think that's a huge strength, actually.
It's so interesting because, like, with vulnerability, it's the exposure to being wounded. It's the risk of being wounded, but there's a whole strength of going like, I don't, you're not actually going to hurt me. I'm at risk of being wounded, but I'm not scared of you being able to hurt me in this setting. What do you think, Nancy? What is it about, like, performing, of getting on a stage, of facing that so head on? Is that just one mechanism where, at least for you personally, you were able to directly say, here's something I don't like the feeling of. Here's how I'm going to, I don't want to make it sound like, reclaim this for myself. How do you package that in your own transformation?
I love what Julia was saying earlier about trust, and how in her experience, she just trusted that whatever came out of her mouth was going to be okay. I think that my early experience with stage fright was a very informative part of my journey, that now I sometimes go, oh, that's why that happened. I had to go through all of that so that I could formulate this kind of current experience. And what I mean by that is, I'm a keynote speaker. I will get on a stage in front of a whole lot of people and be jazzed as can be about what I'm about to say, about the transformative experience I'm about to deliver. I wasn't like that when I first started singing, for a number of reasons, but now it's like it all came together. My my musical, the love for music, the love for singing, the stage fright, the unpacking of my hard drive, the figuring out my own wiring, on and on and on. And now it kind of all feels like it comes together in this package of me standing on a stage, talking to people, being vulnerable, telling them my story, and then them leaving the auditorium thinking differently about how they think. So it wasn't, it's almost like, if we really think about our journey this short lives we have and this blip in time, I mean, that trust thing is really powerful, because it's like, just keep going. It's going to kind of make sense eventually. Your weaknesses will become your strengths. You'll just cut a vein and kind of take a look at everything. Don't take it all so seriously, and don't write so many stories. Just notice instead of judge. And I think that's where I got a lot more comfortable.
I like that.
Notice, don't judge. Yeah, Julia, what do you think about that? And expand on your trust idea, because I love what Nancy just said, how she brought that back in.
Oh, well, firstly, yes, Nancy, I agree again. We're going to be best friends, by the way. I just know it. We got so much in common. We even look quite similar. If I put my glasses on, we would have looked very similar.
Are you in the UK? Are you in the UK or here?
I'm in the UK. Sorry about that.
Okay, well.
That sounds far. You sound far away. Where are you?
I'm in
Not in the
South
UK.
Shore of Massachusetts. We'll have to just change some of that.
We'll figure it out. No, I think, absolutely. Okay, let's pick up on the trust thing. Well, trust to me is obviously trusting that things will be okay. So I think, I've had so much, and maybe this is the key to it. I've had so much to overcome, and I don't mean that in a, get my little violin out. I mean, we're all suffering, right? But I've had my fair share, and I've always overcome it. And so I think when you overcome things, you start to really believe that you can, survive. And more than survive, you can actually sort of power yourself through with it. So I think, I've been through my fair share. So I have that backstop, if you like, or that true belief that I'll be okay. I can't control what's going to happen to me, but I know I'll be fine, And then the second thing about trust is, I always say this to people I'm talking to, and say, trust is everything. If you don't trust someone, you're not going to be authentic with them. You're not going to get the best out of the relationship. You're not going to, it's just going to feel inauthentic and phony, and you're going to second guess everything they say. So whether it's friendships, partners, work colleagues, since I am now fully in myself, I insist upon real. I just insist upon it. I wasted so many years. I'm not going to do that anymore. If you're not real with me, I'm not going to play. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to waste time. So it's probably infuriating for everybody in my life, because I'll be like, they'll say something, I go, what's behind that?
How to make friends or how to make friends.
Well, and my partner, particularly Catherine, she's like, oh God, sometimes I just mean something for the thing I say. You don't have to look behind it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
Well, that's no fun.
There's no fun.
It's okay. You're in a safe space here.
Yeah, I want to know what's behind the thing. So yeah, the trust bit for me is just trusting that A, I'll be okay, and B, that the person in front of me I actually do trust.
Nancy, when you apply that back to client work, like how much time do you spend with clients just talking about the idea of trust? Yourself, others, this whole idea, like that's a rich area.
It is. The Patrick Lencioni book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. How many times have I brought that into a meeting? Or, hey, how many copies should we get of this? It is. I spend a lot of time talking about it, sometimes peripherally, sometimes directly. And sometimes I spend time getting the leader I'm working with to talk about it, So you have to sometimes be a little bit cagey in pointing to what the real issue is. Like with any human being, sometimes it takes a long time to understand what the real issue is. And if walking into a room, Julia, I'm sure you're working with a CEO of a company, post-investment, in your private equity capacity. You're not going to walk in and say, I sense that there's a lack of trust. you have to kind of, it's nuanced. You have to kind of like cajole a little bit so that they can start to observe without judgment what's happening and then set about to change it. But I think that's one of those pillars that is just if it's a problem, it's a big problem. But if it's a problem and no one knows it's a problem, it's an even bigger problem.
How do you think about trust at work, Julia? I'm positive you attack this head on in your work. But how do you think about it? How do you bring it to professional life?
I suppose when Nancy was speaking, I was thinking, first of all, what's worked for me is to always start with a very kind of high bar of trust. I don't go into a situation expecting bad things to happen. I think if you go in with that, you're almost dooming something from the beginning. So people are okay with me and by me as a starting point. I look for that. And then I think trust is a bit like, there's that old adage which is, don't tell me how funny you are, make me laugh. I think you have to demonstrate it. You can't just talk about it. It's a concept. You have to be trustworthy. And trustworthiness, I suppose, is built through a little bit of vulnerability again, sharing things, being someone open to talking about things on a deeper level than what's in front of you. You can hold counsel, you're giving great advice and it's reciprocated. It takes time, doesn't it? And then I think once you've built that, and I suppose the biggest piece of that is really taking the time to know someone, like properly, know all of them. And then when you ask them a question, they're going to think, oh, she's genuinely asking me that question. Like I don't know, if I ask you how you are and you don't trust me, you're thinking, why is she asking me that? Is she looking for a weakness? Whereas if I've got trust with you, you might go, oh, that's nice. She's asked me how I am. But it's such a, it's a simple example, but you get my point. It's like everything's loaded with nuance and it all comes down to how you feel about the person in front of you. If you don't trust them, everything they say, you're going to second guess it. So I think in the workplace, if with colleagues and the people I've sort of had to sort of support over the years, I always take the time to really get to know that person and allow them to get to know me so that I can show up fully and they trust me that I'm consistent and I am the same person in every room, in every situation, and there isn't a face on. Because I think everybody can see past that. If you put a face on for different people, like Matt, say you were super chirpy with us and then you ordered a coffee. Like say we're all in a bar or a cafe and we're going, hey, we're having a great time. And you went, yeah, cappuccino, please. Yeah, right, whatever, get it. I don't know, you'd never do that. But do you know what I mean? It's that different face thing. I'm going to be looking at you going, well, which one's real then? Who's the real Matt? So I think consistency of behaviors and energy is really important.
Okay. Ooh. How do you think, and Nancy, you first on this, how do you think, like it takes a lot of life to learn these and internalize these lessons. How do we show up better for younger people, either at work or kids adds a whole other complicated layer to this. But how do we show this to people who maybe haven't gone through all the hard stuff yet? But we just want them to know that this is an option. I think this is one of the important things about having conversations like this in public is like people have to hear about all the ups and downs and the uglies along the way that get us here. But what do you tell the younger people to just fast track them towards this awareness?
Yeah, I mentor young people, and I love that. I love that. It's a love work. And I tell them pretty straight about how they start messing up and mess up a lot. Stay safe. You be mindful of your messes. Mess up, because we all do it. If we tell you that we don't, we're lying. And if you can start to reframe the mess ups as learnings and lessons, you are ahead of the game. That's one thing I tell young people all the time, including my adult children. My stepchild children, any young person that will be patient enough to listen to me, I will tell them. It's just like, I messed up so much, and I'm okay. I'm talking to you right now. We're okay. And I think especially, Matt, you say for children, it's a whole nother layer of complication, but a lot of the coaching that I do is not too fundamentally different than some of the parenting I do. It's right, bringing ourselves everywhere. Of course, I'm not going to mother a client, but I'm not going to say, please brush your teeth. I am going to say, look, this is what you're learning here is invaluable. Tell me how you might want to do this differently next time. Not, this is what you do differently next time. What would you like to do differently next time? How did this feel as an experience for you? And what are you noticing about yourself? This is all the same language I use as a mom. And I think for young people, when they know that it's okay, that they don't have to have it figured out, that even when we say we have it all figured out, we are blowing a lot of smoke, it gives them permission to feel themselves. It gives them permission to find their way and know that it's okay. And then they may stop judging themselves a little bit. And man, if we can do that for that generation, I think we're really onto something, because there's a lot of judgment that they experience on a daily basis, whether digitally or in real life. And I think we've got to help them with that.
What about you, Julia? How do you think about that?
I don't know. I'm not very good at it. I don't know. I'm really, I
do you mentor younger people? Do you do that?
Do you
do that directly? Do you mentor younger people? Do you mentor younger people at all directly?
I've got a 21-year-old and 23-year-old. And the only reason I said I'm not very good at it is I've just been told off massively by my 23-year-old for being like, little miss, fix it. And, so weird that for your own children, you don't do the things that you do in your professional life. It's just some kind of wires are broken when it comes to your own kids. So she was like, next time I ring you and I'm upset about something, can you just say, oh, I'm sorry that's happened, and they're there, pat her on the back and, make her feel better about it. But automatically I just go, let me fix that for you. So young people, I think I have a tendency, and I would like to not be like this, to try to kind of be the sort of solver of their stuff, which is so dumb, really, because I do also know that, you don't learn unless you actually you experience things for yourself. It's like how we learn to walk, right? Falling over a lot. So no, I don't do it formally. I'm the youngest kind of people I speak to are probably in their sort of mid-30s and that kind of thing. Usually sort of transversing that kind of tricky time of family. Or I do senior execs, I do CEOs and sort of the C-suite people. But it's like, I think young people, I totally agree with you, Nancy. I think I don't know what it would be like to be a young person right now. I think they, like that judgment thing you said, the whole like culture and that instant, judgment, was my post popular? Am I being validated every single day externally? It just must be so exhausting to constantly be seeking a sense of who you are from somebody else saying you're good or you're not good, and to instill that kind of knowingness inside them through experience, through trial and error, through genuine introspection and being encouraged to think deeply about their values and what lights them up and what makes them happy. All those things that I imagine you do brilliantly, that is invaluable, because they're not going to get that from the outer world. They're just going to get thumbs up, hearts. It's like it's not substantial enough if you're developing yourself as a person.
Right.
I've got some notes. I want you guys to just freely reflect back on this with me. I'm taking us through some of the stuff that you said. There is just tons of stuff that's so good in here. I love the differential between you stepping on stage the first time, Julia, at 14 and you doing it at 40, Nancy. Like, I love that differential. And this is my first question. Nancy, you answer this first. Is I say this thinking of this a lot as a 43-year-old who is revisiting the same hair that I had in roughly the same town as I had in 1995 lately. I keep joking. It's like, I'm trying to do 15 again, right? Keep telling my wife this. Like, maybe it'll be better. Is something about 40 midlife? Is it almost like a teenage year's do-over? Is there some truth to that?
I don't really subscribe to the midlife, whatever that is. I think that I don't. I think that for me, I was 40 when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so I had spent a whole lifetime up until then thinking that everybody else was just managing their mood instability better than I was. Like, I just thought it was a thing and everybody else was better at it than I was. So when I finally got diagnosed, it was that was a real turning point for me, because there was so much shame, and there was also like, oh, well, now that makes sense, And so I think that moment in time for me was like, well, what are you going to do now? You've got this thing. You're going to have to figure your brain out. I've got 2 young children, a husband. I'm trying to figure all that stuff out. Let me do something that's going to fuel my soul so I don't regret this when I die. And then that was the motivation for me. It wasn't really well thought out. It was just like, it hit me like, you either try this thing or wish you had for the rest of your life.
What about you, Julia? How do you think about that? Is do you buy into the whole like midlife crisis thing, or is that a myth?
Says the woman who came out at 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think, yes, I think there's something about midlife. I think when you look back and you think that felt like yesterday, and if you add those years ahead, like I don't know, my teens feel like yesterday, and if I'm lucky to have another, 40 years ahead of me, I'm 55 next month. If I'm lucky to have, 40 years ahead of me, I'll be 95. And you start to think, well, I don't know that many 95-year-olds. Most people I know ahead of me have been going in their 70s and 80s. And then you start winding that back to how many, healthy summers you're going to have. And I want to do it all now while my legs still work. You know what I mean? I'm very aware of time more than anything now. I see time as the biggest currency. I would trade time for money every time. Sorry, use the word time way too many times then.
Okay.
So.
Well, then it's time for you to follow that thought up with this, because Nancy said something, and I want your perspective on this too. She said it's up to me to either choose to hide or lean in, and part of that's just figuring out your own wiring. It feels like you've just kind of figured out your own wiring, and that the time bomb is the thing you're addressing right now. Yeah,
and I'm a little bit cross with myself that I took so long about it. No, I don't regret any of my time prior. You can't, because everything was a learning, to Nancy's point about, every day you learn something new about yourself and the world. And it's like, so I don't have any regrets in that way, but I sort of do. I've met Catherine now at this age, and I kind of, I'm living like it's going to continue forever. We're very kind of excitable about it all. I want to travel and I want to do loads of things. And then, to your point about is there such a thing as a midlife crisis? Well, it is when I sit there and go, oh, God, actually, I'm quite tired. You know what I mean? But my brain thinks I'm 25, but my body's going, yeah, sit down. So I it's that realization that it is you can't cheat time forever. You kind of, those summers are going to run out. So I think that comes to us at around midlife. We start to realize we're at the sort of time ahead of us is possibly less than the time behind us. And I know that's a sort of cliched thing, but I'm really feeling it at the moment. I'm aware of it much more than I ever was.
Nancy, I need you to go deeper. And it's kind of connecting this back to the no crisis, but maybe it's just movies all the way down. Can you just tell me a little bit more about the Dorothy thing? The Dorothy Wizard of Oz. Yeah. It's all here right now. Tell me that story.
Yeah, for me, my path showed me that, oh crap, You could have done this. So your point, Julia, you could have figured all this out years ago, Nancy. You have the ruby slippers. You're ambling down the, you got the Tin Man, you've met the monkeys. It's all, and you could have done this, but you didn't know how. And so it's a powerful metaphor for me, and because it helps me describe to people that I'm speaking to or working with or love that, you're only going to know when you know. It's not always time. You can't know everything at the beginning of the movie, right? So at the end of the movie, when she was like, oh man, Glenda, really? I just had to tap these together. It's almost a little comical, like, Julia, in your 50s, I'm 65 this year. Really? I got remarried 3 years ago to a man that there's not enough time to talk about. And it's like, why couldn't I have met, like, I had all this in me? It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time. You weren't ready, Julia, at 20 to come out. I wasn't ready at 20 to dig into my brain. I thought everybody was having the same experience. I didn't even have the awareness. So it's like, once we just say, okay, it just wasn't time, it really lets us off the hook. And it really it was a great movie, The Wizard of Oz. Like, if she knew it in the beginning, we would have had a 5-minute movie. So you accept the path as it is. And now I really do have a lot of focus on making sure that I'm just living in the present. I really resist the counting how many summers, how many Christmases, because I'm getting there. So I just want to stay in the now, and like, this is awesome. And at the end of this day, hopefully there's another one and another one after that. And we're just going to kind of roll along the yellow brick road until we get, there.
I like that. I'm going to take more of that, to be honest, because I feel like I'm always looking at this what do they call those things? Sand timers.
Hourglass. I have
hourglass. That's it.
Yeah, I have one. Don't.
I'm gonna throw mine away. I haven't got one, but you get my point. I love that. Stay present today and just you do it now. Okay.
Okay. I'm knocking you straight out of the present for a second, Julia, and with a really important question of a prior self. Best pair of shoulder pads. Did you have any good high power suits? Did you have some good shoulder pads? Nancy confessed some.
You know what? My ex-husband's a bit of an archivist.
Oh no!
And and Catherine, my partner now, she's like, just how many films and pictures does he have of you? And I'm like, all of them, because he's like, we met when I was 16, and he's big on tech, so we were the only people who had a camcorder and a camera, I think, and it was way before iPhones. So there's so much evidence, and I think. There was one gig I did when I was, we've only been together a short while. And I have taken a little black jacket, and I put gold, what do they call those things that soldiers have?
Yeah.
Epaulets.
Epaulets. Good word.
With gold cord all the way down. And here with these huge epaulets and gold. And I made this myself, and I thought I was the coolest person in the world. And I look back now, and I'm like, God. I just look at it and go, what were you thinking? And that's probably the biggest shoulder pad I've ever had. But see if you can top that, Nancy.
I
gold
can't.
epaulets.
At the Bank of New York at 48 Wall Street, I had the high neck blouse with the ruffle, bow tie, big shoulder pads. Always the jacket on. Oh no, there were no epaulets to be had.
Yeah, but that's still that's such an iconic image, isn't it? I can see you absolutely bossing it as well. It's a good thing.
In the tradition of absolutely bossing it, I don't know if you've either ever seen this picture, because it's high art in that it was in Mad Magazine, I think, originally. But I used to have this fold out on the wall, and when you're talking about you're trying to remember what it is, the captain of the boat. And I thought, this is not the right time to bring up Washington crossing the Delaware, because, I have to be respectful as the Americans here. We don't want to gang up on you. But Mad Magazine did this wonderful fold out ad that I had hanging in my room forever. and it was Washington cross-dressing the Delaware, and it's Washington in drag, but I think he still had the epaulets on the shoulder. And I'm gonna have to look for that image now and send it. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I'm going to dig out those pictures of me and send them to you, Matt.
Okay, we'll see if we can get one.
Don't leave me out, Julia.
All right.
Don't leave me
Oh,
out.
you can have one too.
The email introduction on the end, we're going to invite that stuff to be shared. Another one, Nancy, I want you to this might be my statement of this whole episode. People mistrust inconsistent people. Consistency. What is consistency?
Oh, when Julia was talking about you don't trust if you show up differently. Yeah. Yes. What is consistent? It's easy. You just you don't act. You just be. Like if I really thought about how many times I checked the things I said when I was younger, I hid things from people, I didn't really express my true feelings, that's work. Consistency is like being yourself wherever you go in every situation. And by the way, as a parent, that means talking with your kids about what you did that was wrong that you're telling them not to do now. So, it's not hiding that you smoked weed when you were a kid. Oh, I can't. That's setting the wrong example. No, you're setting the wrong example when you are not yourself. They'll learn from that. You say, yeah, I did that. I didn't feel good. And then I got behind the wheel of a car and wow, was that stupid? I'm lucky I'm here actually. So, you know what I mean? So consistency is just the lack of the hard work of faking it. It's giving yourself a pass actually. That's the way I look at it.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Julia? You want to build out any more on what consistency means to you now?
Well, I mean, I suppose I believe that people are always watching you, like especially if you're in a leadership position or position of authority. I believe that people are just observing you all the time, and I think people who do have some kind of responsibility don't necessarily appreciate that. And if you are inconsistent, they just people will notice. And I think it catches you out. If you're being inconsistent, it catches you out in your humanity. That's where I think people really show who they really are. If you say the words, and then if someone drops a wallet next to them, and they just walk past, you hang on a minute. You talk a good game. You didn't even stop to pick that up. Or again, back to the coffee thing. If you ask for coffee in the wrong way, I'm really big on politeness. Like it costs nothing at all, as they say. And I think it's so revealing. Always say hello. Always have a smile. Why not? If that's who you want people to think you are, well, be that everywhere. But if you're not that person, then don't do it. Because it's going to just... if the people are in the cold, if you're in the warm, if I'm smiling at you and then I turn around to the next person and I haven't got a smile, how's that person going to feel? They're going to feel like, wow, A, she's super phony, and B, why am I not getting smiled at? So I think it hurts people actually when you're inconsistent. It hurts you because you're not, you're having to sort of twist and turn and make it, like double think, like I think that's what you're saying, Nancy, is you're always having to second guess yourself and check yourself. And it hurts everybody else because they get a poor experience with you. So I agree. I think just drop it. Drop the act. Just be yourself. It doesn't matter. None of it really matters. I mean, only sworn. You just don't waste time. Right. Back to the time point. Don't waste time being something that you think people need you to be. It's we all see through it anyway. It's pointless.
Exactly right.
Exactly right. And quick plug, if you haven't read Morris Day's book, Morris Day, On Time,
okay,
fantastic musical read about his relationship with Prince and his entire career arc. And he says time way too many times in that book, but I can't resist. All right, it's time to play the game. Nancy, I want you to take a stab. Why do you think I wanted you to meet Julia here? What do you think's on the other side of this card?
Besides the fact that she's just kind of awesome, rock star, badass. Because he wanted me to meet her because, well, there's so many, the Venn diagrams intersect in so many different ways, all the way across the pond. I just think it's it's kind of eerie, actually, how many intersections there are. And with two people that have led very different lives. But that's the magic in it. That's the beauty in it. So that's my high-level answer. I'm sorry if it's not as...
Perfect. Perfectly answered. There's no right answer to this. And the bad part is I write this down in advance, so I'm inevitably wrong too. But, Julia, be bold. What do you think? What's the reason?
I think you probably thought that we would, that we're kindreds in this authenticity thing and being real thing. That is actually a tenet. It's a core of who we are. And maybe the music thing too, probably. But yeah, I think music and realness is what I'm going to say, because it's only a small card. Can't write much.
No, you can't write much. So here's what it says. I basically said that life is a performance and it transforms you and maybe the audience if you're doing it right. And I think you both lead by that an example. You both go out, you understand the performative qualities of like what you have to do to get the attention that you have to get, but not in some inconsistent, impersonal way. You're actually trying to model how that audience can be transformed by the sharing of the work you do. And that was really the heart of why I wanted to make sure you guys met each other sometime, somewhere out here over the rainbow.
That's more poetic than we said, Julia, but that's Matt.
But also, Nancy, I kind of wanted to also compliment you too, because again, back to my hardwired politeness. No, I think because I think you knew we'd have a wonderful conversation and feel completely at ease with each other. And I think you're awesome too, Nancy. I think that, the things that you've achieved, go out on stage at 40, that's such a thing. Because people would just, there'll be judgment. There'll be people going, really? Nancy, is you sure you want to do this? And
well, like you
yes.
At 50. Okay. We're going to talk about they'll be, okay. Yeah.
So I think we both overcome that kind of need to be ourselves against expectation and what people might say. So I think there's a little bit of that too. I think that's what makes us badass. So there we are.
I can't agree to that more. Julia, if people want to find you on the internet, they want to see all the cool things you're doing out there and sharing, where are the best places for them to look?
Oh, I'm so bad at this, Matt. You just reel off a load of URLs and you'd go, blah, 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 mattziegler.com. I don't have anything like that. Just, look me up on LinkedIn. Not even a dot. Just Julia Duthie. My podcast is called People Are Everything. You can get it anywhere. So all your, they always say that, don't they? Wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find me. But I don't have a website or anything like that. I don't have a place to point you. Just come find me.
Come find Julia. You definitely want to check out that podcast too. And Nancy, what about you? If people want to bug you on the internet, where should they look?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. Easy to find me there, Nancy Burger. My website is nancyrburger.com. Burger spelled like hamburger. nancyrburger.com. Find me there. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. And I'm responsive. So send me an email or DM me and I'll get back to you if you want to chat.
I want to thank you both so much for coming out. You're watching Just Press Record. This is Cultish Creative YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, all the things below, and we are out. Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, and hey, subscribe below to Cultish Creative on YouTube if you haven't already. As the good compliance people want me to remind you, Matt Ziegler, that's me, is a managing director at Sunpoint Investments. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Sunpoint Investments. No information on this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Securities discussed in the podcast may be holdings of clients of Sunpoint Investments. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you found this useful. I hope you talk to a professional before you try any of this stuff at home. And most of all, I hope you've subscribed. Be nice to each other out there. And don't forget, head over to cultishcreative.com and let's make curiosity a habit together. And I'm out.